And welcome everybody, wherever you are. I'm sure we've got some people from very different parts of the world. I'm speaking from Southwest France. Serge is speaking from Mallorca. Andrew's in London. Peter Fenwick, our emeritus president, he's with us from Scotland. I can see our president, Bernard Carr, is also speaking from London. Before I do anything else, I'm going to light a candle. So I'm just going to do that, as we normally do for Scientific and Medical Network meetings. And then I'm just going to explain the structure of the evening before introducing Serge. So Serge is going to talk on his theme, how to speed up our evolution, for 40 minutes. And then we're going to go into small groups for 10 minutes, which will give you a chance to meet each other. And then we're going to have a 5-minute break. And then we'll come back for questions and further exercises with Serge. So that's how the evening is going to be structured. Now, coming on to introducing Serge, he's one of my very old friends. And I in fact, in the 80s, 86 to 91, I lived in Serge's old schoolhouse in Gloucestershire, and he was in the school next door. So we saw a lot of each other. And of course, we've both been involved in this work for a very long time. And in 1986, we both shared the 80th birthday celebrations for Sir George Trevelyan. And this was an incredible event at Imperial College, where there were 850 people in the largest hall. And we had another 400 who'd like to have been there, and there was no live streaming in those days, so we couldn't fit them in. And so it was an incredible event. And so Serge and I hosted that together with our rather different styles. Now, Serge has asked me to mention a couple of points in the introduction. His book, Gateways to the Soul, Inner Work for the Outer World, is about to be published. And he'll be drawing on the book this evening. Then the proceeds of the book are going to a small charity in Bristol called the APE Project, and I've put the link in the chat box. It helps disadvantaged children, so you can, if you want to support that yourselves or find out about it, you can click on that link. And you can order Serge's book from the various normal places, including reading excerpts on Amazon, also Barnes & Noble, Inner Traditions, and Goodreads. And then could you contact Serge if you'd like to be on his mailing list. And he's very kindly offered that if anybody who's listening this evening would like a free psychotherapy or development session, then he's happy to do that for you. And so that's Serge's way of giving back. He's an incredibly generous person. I know that from many years of experience. He also started up, when he was doing his PhD in California, which is when I first met him in 1984, he was part of the team that started up the Institute for Conscious Evolution in San Francisco in the 1980s. And we still need such an institute, more, probably, at least as much, if not more, than we did in the 1980s. And so Serge has been involved in the field for a very, very long time. And I think he first went to Findhorn at the end of the 1960s. And so he's a real veteran. And we're very much looking forward to what he has to say and to his sharing with us this evening. So welcome from wherever you are. And Serge, I'm handing over to you.
Thank you, David. And so am I in
You're
the
live
center?
to you, yeah.
I am live.
Yeah,
because I'm still in a tiny little box. Is that how I should be?
Yeah, it is. And we can see your guitars and your African sculptures and your Indian art.
Okay, good. Okay. Well, thank you very much, David. Yes, I'm a battle-hardened veteran of the consciousness movement, and it's very nice. Thank you, David, for asking me back. And the structure, I'll just explain the structure this evening. I'm going to talk for about 40 minutes, sort of give you a couple of short exercises, and then David is going to take you into sort of groups, so then you can discuss. Then we'll have a break, and then we'll have some questions to me. Okay, great. Well, I talked here a few months ago, and I talked on the theme of the coronavirus as fierce grace. My thinking has changed a little bit, because I'm starting to realize how fierce this grace is actually, and how unconscious and how incapable so many of us are of making changes, and how difficult it is for our politicians to make changes and to create a world that works for more people. We seem to need a rocket up our backsides for any changes to happen, and I see this coronavirus as such a rocket. Because it's interesting, all those inconvenient problems that Al Gore talks about, hunger, sort of racism, the climate change, they don't get dealt with. Why don't they get dealt with? Because it's too inconvenient, and politicians don't get brownie points for helping people at the other end of the world. And what I think is going to start happening is that we're going to see all kinds of changes, and this coronavirus is going to open up a whole new world, and I'm going to talk about that later. But it kind of makes me cringe. I just read the other day that in the last 3 months, the portfolios of the super wealthy have earned more money in the last 3 months than they have in the last 3 years. And I think that says something about the imbalances in the world. And 2 years ago, I read the income alone of the 600 richest in the world could have eradicated poverty 3 times over. Now, presumably, it could eradicate it 6 times over. So, my dear friends, we have to accept that our planet is not in a good place politically, economically, socially, ecologically, and psychologically. And the United Nations predicts famines of unprecedented proportions in the years ahead. I'm just saying this not to be alarmist, but so that we be real, so that we don't be ostriches putting our head in the soil, but we be more giraffes to lift our heads up. And as I argued in my book, the problem in the world is really the problem of soullessness. There's an absence of this mysterious thing called soul that allows, therefore, a space for greed, extractivism, war, and selfishness. And I also see there's a connection between physical starvation and spiritual starvation, which many people also suffer from, and in its own way, it's just as dire. And we need more of this mysterious ingredient called soul. And I confess that my book was written out of a kind of rage at the soullessness in the world. Because actually, if we want soul, it doesn't just come. We're not, malheureusement, like acorns who just morph spontaneously into oak trees. We seem to stop somewhere at the kind of grown-up stage, or we think we're grown up. I think a friend of mine defined a grown-up as someone who stopped growing, but we stop growing when we're a certain age, and we think that's the end of it. But actually, that's when we need to begin to do more work on ourselves. Actually, the problem is not that there isn't enough soul. There's plenty of soul. In fact, soul is the core of who we all are. And Putin and Trump have soul. The problem is that it's hidden. We haven't reached deeply enough into our closets and brought our soul life sufficiently into the light of day. So it's as if soul doesn't exist. But my sense is that in plunging us to the depths and helping us ask new questions about what our lives are like, what's really important, what really has meaning, I think this virus is helping slowly to bring soul out of the closet. You know that crisis, the dark night of the soul? Well, my friends, we've been in a dark night, I think, for the last decade, but we're moving deeper into it. And I think that the things that dark nights do and big crises do is that they act as magnifiers or intensifiers of what's going on. So if one had a job stacking parcels at Amazon and one couldn't bear it, now it's absolutely intolerable. And if one had an emotional problem, but one was able to suppress it, now it's much more difficult. And I'm noticing in clients of mine that big issues are beginning to surface for them. And I feel that this is really healthy, because as we know, if we go into the darkness, if we go into our own personal shadow and we explore it, we find the light underneath. Or as Carl Jung put it, if you want to evolve, don't go and sit up in the light on the mountaintop. Go into your dark side. But it's disquieting because we're kind of in an in-between world. We're in an in-between space. One world seems to be falling away. And the world that is coming, we don't know. Are we going to have to wear our masks forever? Are we going to have to say hello like this forever? Are we not going to be able to hug those we love and not go to any parties anymore? See, the thing about this pandemic is that it's not particularly, I'm just thinking of the word, discerning. You know, it doesn't matter if you're a saint or a sinner, or you're 80 or 1 year old, it'll plug on. And it's not like we're being fed one big shock. It's like we're being drip fed these shocks that are intensifying everything and magnifying everything. And shocks can either kill or they can illuminate us. And the fact that all of you are here sort of listening to me it shows that you're on the awakening side. I see the enormous rise of goodwill and altruism the world over as a direct response to this crisis. I'm finding a capacity of goodwill in people and kindness that is awesome. And look at the NHS people on the front line. And I think Black lives matter. The fact that it's become worldwide and white people have joined, I think that this has been made possible by this virus. So yes, amid the chaos and the movement towards totalitarianism and demagoguery and craziness in America and Hong Kong, I do see a counter sort of movement for greater freedom and a new definition of democracy. happening everywhere. And what gives me incredible happiness is that it's being spearheaded by the young. My 20-year-old daughter, she's doing a degree in human rights and global politics. And in the evening, she's going to be 21, and in the evening she's going to courses on conflict resolution because she's interested in it. God, what a silly little boy I was at 21. I wasn't interested in those things. Okay, perhaps the immune system of our planet was not as vulnerable as it is today, but I can see an incredible consciousness amongst the young, and this is what really makes my heart sing. I was talking to a young political activist the other day, and I take our conversation, and here's what he said. We millennials don't have the wool pulled over our eyes like you older people do. We're clued up. We understand technology, and we have the information as to how bad a state the world is in, so we know where our work lies. So what I am seeing is not only is soul awakening, but heart is also awakening. A client of mine, a selfish old bugger really, sort of bless his heart, you know, I love him, but part of his problems that he was just involved with himself. He suddenly said to me, look, Serge, I'm getting fed up, you know, talking to you. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm going to go out and help people. And being a bit of a mover and shaker, he organized meals to be cooked at his house. He cooked them, and then he took them round to poor people everywhere. And he said to me, I've never been happier. My despair has gone, and I see it existed because I was too centered on myself, only worrying about myself. And here's the key point, what he said to me. I'm beginning to feel I'm part of humanity instead of just a separate unit. And here's the key thing. Part of our evolution, we're needing to realize that we're part of humanity. That's the next stage. And I found it very touching. And I am realizing that today, one of the most important spiritual activities that any of us can be engaged in is in the act of trying to be of service. The great Tibetan sage, Dwaj Khul, I don't know if any of you have ever read those Alice Bailey teachings. This great master said this, service is of many kinds, and he who wisely renders it, who seeks to find his particular sphere, and finding it gives effort gladly for the benefit of the whole, is the one whose own development proceeds steadily. And my experience of people whom I know who are servers, and my dear friend David is one, and dear Peter Fennig is another, they are happy and joyful people, and they're alive and awake. It's because there's a good spirit of kindness and generosity flowing through. Okay, I'm going to give you 7 things that you can do to make a difference. Do you have a pen? If any of you need a pen, it may be worth writing down. They're pretty obvious. Point 1, spend 5 minutes sending good, positive, healing energy to some part of the planet you feel needs it. Yemen, even the White House, or a person you know who's in a terrible place. 2, do 1 random act of kindness a day. Tell you where this came from. I was going to my car many years ago, sprinting because I realized my meter had run out in the days when you put money in the car. And I saw someone just walking away. And I got to my car and I saw £1 had been put in my meter. That was a huge step. And I noticed the man didn't even stay to tell me how wonderful he was. He just did it and walked away. Think these little things are big things. So my third point is also think of a friend in need and do something to help them. My fourth point, tithe 5% of what you earn to a cause you believe in. My next point, if you perceive wrong in an area where you work or are connected, don't let it remain. Create a fuss, take a stand, let the cat out of the bag and follow through. You know that wonderful phrase of evil is when good people do nothing. Well, we need to do a lot of things, all of us. And as I hope I've shown, it's going to make us happy. And the sacrifice is not doing these things. The sacrifice is staying rooted in our individualitis and not doing anything. On the next point, I'm going to do a little process with you for 3 minutes. So if you can close your eyes and put your hands on your heart here, and just tune into the quality of gratitude. Just feel those things in your life that you're grateful for. Being alive, your children, you've got a house over your head, etc., etc. We don't spend enough time doing this. We're always thinking what we don't have. I want you to all come up to 20 things you're grateful for. Just put them in your heart. Feels good, doesn't it? It makes us remember that for all the pain going on, that we live in a generous universe that wants to give to us, that wants us to feel joy. And okay, my last one is, and if you haven't finished, perhaps you can do it. If you were to do that every day, it would be a wonderful discipline. Think of a soulful quality you feel you need more of in your life. Perhaps it's kindness or wisdom or compassion or vitality. And then imagine you're allowing this quality, because all the qualities, they live inside our hearts anyway. Allow this particular quality to come out of your heart and to come out of hiding and be there. And just feel it in your heart. So let's say it's compassion. Feel it in your heart. Feel compassion for yourself. It's easier to forgive yourself. And feel compassion out in the world. And then just think how your life would change if you lived with more of this compassion or this courage or this wisdom. And I'd like you now to just imagine the rest of your day you're living from that place. What your life would be like if you worked at bringing this quality more to the fore. You thought about it every day. You remembered to be loving. You remembered that you're wise. You remembered to be kind. David mentioned generosity. And I just want to say a little bit about it because I feel it's such an important quality. And as I just said earlier, I know people like David and Peter who are eminently generous. And there's always a smile on their face and a spring on their step. Why? Because sort of as we give out sort of energy comes into us. And the sad thing in our world is that people are very afraid of giving, especially with money. I'm not going to have enough if I give. And I'm sure there must be some dark side of mine that is stingy somewhere. But I find stinginess sort of one of those traits that I find really sad in people. I mean, I must have a projection, there must be in me. But it's this sort of terrifying about giving of yourself to a friend, of going out of your way. My wife is one of the most generous people in the whole world, and she's always giving to people. There's always a kindness, and it's the reason why she's a happy person, and I learn so much from her. And I think that it's not just giving money, but giving our kindness and our knowledge in areas where we have it, or our love, or our warmth. There's a lot of not-haves in the world. The world out there is a reflection of you and I in there. And the not-haves out there is because many of us in the West, we believe in a story, one, about our being separate from our fellow human beings, and two, that there's never enough love or water or money. There is. We just need to change the mindset. And I think our world will turn around when we human beings learn to honor and to own and then fill the emptiness inside us that we like to fill with possessions or things or being busy or alcohol, whatever we do, with soulfulness and giving. Looked at from another viewpoint, what is happening in the world is a crisis of the dark night of the soul, but also a crisis of spiritual emergence. Inside you and I, my dear, dear friends, is a fully alive, vital, awake human being who has senses beyond the five senses, who's brave, many-dimensional, and altruistic. And this new human being is wanting to come in, is wanting to be born inside each of us. And we need to cooperate with the emergence. Don't shut down. There's this tendency, and it goes along with our stinginess, to want to clench and clasp and shut down. This is not a time to shut down, it's a time to open up. Now, what I'm seeing is this. You may not agree, but this thought just came to me yesterday. There's many great visionaries who have blueprints for how a new economic order, a new political order, a new social order will work. They're great geniuses. I've read some of their books, but most of them are a little too clever for me. But they're incredibly clever people who've got all these blueprints of how a new world order will work. And why haven't they ever come into being? They haven't come because the old order is taking up all the space. What is happening now is that the breaking up, the crumbling away of the ancien regime is taking place. And I think that very soon there's going to be space for these new visionary blueprints by geniuses to slot into our society. And I find this very exciting because I think we're going to move on to a whole new time-space continuum where things will be happening much, much quicker, and that there'll be a new quantum leap in consciousness. I know that this has been talked about by a lot of people, and I've really been researching and meditating on it, and I actually believe it. So I say to you, don't fear what's dying, but cooperate with what's being reborn. And don't be attached to the past. We all are. And that's why we had this virus to shake us free. Because when breakdowns happen, possibilities open for breakthrough. When deaths of old systems happen, spaces open up for rebirth, regeneration, and resurrection. But we have to see the toxicities inside ourselves and out in the world in order to be able to deal with them. If the dragon is in its lair, the dragon can control us and breathe fire. Once we see our personal dragons, our human collective dragons, our political, social, and economic dragons, then we can deal with them. Who knows? It may be that in 5 years from now, Americans will look back in gratitude to Trump for embodying everything that is most distasteful about the dark side of that country. And they're going to be grateful. And I think that maybe he will have done a service in all his horrendousness, because we have to see it for what it is and not hide away. So my friends, these are initiatory times. We're being tested. What's happening is a kind of stripping away. And are we going to allow this stripping? Because that's what happens in the dark night. Yes, we're having to wear face masks, but what is happening underneath is that our false masks are starting to fall away. And in a tiny, tiny little way, that is beginning to happen with me. Because for a long time, I've been very expert at preaching what I often found it hard to practice. And I would talk a lot about simplicity. But somehow I was too caught up with the complexities and the artificials of life to really live the simplicity that my heart desired. And what is happening now, that for several reasons I can't do many of the things which I used to do. And while I initially reacted, oh dear, I don't like my freedoms being taken away, I realized they actually weren't freedoms, but rather ways I had of complicated my life by spending a lot of time fussing over inessentials. And actually, what I'm observing happening for me is not a reduction, but an expansion. My life has become very simplified. And what I'm finding is that I'm seeing fewer people, but the quality of my connection with those I see has become deeper. And I remember studying Buckminster Fuller many years ago, and he would talk of the lever effect. How can we achieve more out of less? Well, in a tiny little way, I'm beginning in a small way to do this. And okay, that you can say that I'm older, and so certain things are not as important to me as they were when I was young. But actually, in being stripped away, my life has become more real. And in being narrowed at one level, it's curiously expanding in another level. So I want to say to you, allow yourself to be broken open by what's happening in the world. Allow your old rigidities and clenches to fade away, because the fire is not the fire of destruction. The fire going on is the fire of transformation. So feel that fire inside your heart, because our hearts are our inner alchemists. They transmute our base metal into gold. And when our hearts start to open, we're more aware of the promptings of our soul. We have more energy, we feel better, we think more clearly, we have access to more love, kindness, and compassion, and we act more effectively. I wrote my first book about awakening the heart because I just felt it so important. And it was a book to teach myself how to do it, because my heart was quite wounded. And it's slowly healing as my life is becoming simpler. So if you feel heartache at aspects of the world, allow the heartache, because I think there's a connection between our capacity to serve and what we feel truly mortified about. I wrote my book on soul because I was mortified about the lack of soullessness in the way that I was brought up, and in the lack of soul manifesting out in the world. So where we're often most upset is where we do the greatest work. I'm upset by elephants, but not enough to become an elephant activist. You know, I think it's terrible about the ivory being taken, but my heart does not break. My heart breaks over other things. And where my heart breaks is where I'm able to do best work. So, my friends, our planet needs us. A new and better world is not just going to come into operation on its own. It's not going to come down on a flying saucer, or it's not going to be brought about by our politicians. It's going to be brought about by you and I in our own various fields, doing what we need to do. And like the scientific and medical network is an organ of service. It's bringing a new consciousness into science and medicine. It's doing a tremendous work. And I'm sure that inside dear Peter and David is a sense of the sorrow about scientific materialism. And I'm sure that that is what has brought you to do your good work. So change is not going to happen on its own. We have to be the change, or as Gandhi said, we need to be the change that we wish to see. And the last thing I'm going to say is that I see a lot of spiritual help available. I personally feel it's easier to make big spiritual strides at this time, because in our time of intensification and amplification and crisis, the higher spiritual worlds are coming closer to us. If we're stuck, it's much easier to ask for help from source. If I want Peter Penny to help me, I need to say, "Hi, Peter, how are you? Can you come over and help me?" I need to ask him. He's not just going to arrive out of the blue like that. And it's the same with the upstairs worlds or the inner worlds. We need to get on the phone, find our own way of communicating with the invisible worlds and ask for their help. We don't need to be part of a religion to be a spiritual person. We need to find today our own ways of doing it. My way is a lot through nature. My way is a lot through prayer. My way is a lot through the heart. But I try to keep open, to make the effort to tune into the help that I think is there. In other words, to ask the force to be with us. The force being that universal presence, which when we feel it working with us, not only guides us, but also empowers us. And in a small way, when I do my retreats with people, or I do my work with people, I feel the force with me, and I feel empowered, and I feel guided. And I think that we really need to open up to the realization that the world, the universe we live in, is much more extraordinary and magical and all-encompassing than we could ever believe. I'm just going to finish by saying that in terms of the personal work, I feel there's 5 areas. I'm just going to list them, and then I'm going to finish. The first area of work is it's important to do soul-centered psychotherapy or depth psychotherapy. We need to deal with our emotional wounds. We can't just bypass them. It's a very important part of spiritual work. The second important part is meditation. The calmer we are, the more space higher power or soul has to come alive in it. The third area of work is heart work. We need to work at opening this inner heart inside our chest and bringing more heart into our life and into the lives of those around us and into the life of our planet. Fourth area is prayer. Terribly important, as we need to talk to the universe. And the last area is service, which I've been talking about. So these 5 areas of work are the areas which, if we want to awaken, these need to be focused on. And as I said, I'm very, very happy if there's anyone who would like to talk with me, no charge. I'm very happy to share these with you personally. Okay.
Serge, thank you so much. That was what I might call a download of practical wisdom. which is the originally Aristotle's idea. But the wisdom that you've shared with us and your life experience and your reflections is very much a practical wisdom. And I thank you for that. And before we go into groups, I've just got one story that resonates with your talking about the need to ask. And I remember when we used to have our lunches with Sir George Trevelyan, he would emphasize that point. And of course, he was very sort of outspoken in a spiritual sense. Anyway, it's a story about Peter Dunov, the Bulgarian sage. And he was living in a townhouse in Sofia. And one of his followers came to visit him quite late at night. And he saw the light was on and Dunov was at home. And he stood outside because he thought to himself, the master will know that I'm here and he'll just come down and open the door. Nothing happened. So eventually he knocks and Dunov comes down and lets him in. And he says that the visitor said, well, surely you knew I was here and you could have come down and let me in. And he said, of course I did. But in the physical world, you have to ask to receive and you have to knock if you want the door opened. So it reinforces your point that we need to be proactive and not just expect everything to land on our plate.
Yeah.
So thank you very, very much for that. Andrew, I think what we're going to do now, just to recap, is we're just going to go into small groups to meet each other and share some reflections for 10 minutes. And Serge, you're very welcome to join one of those groups. And then we'll have a 5-minute break. Andrew will bring us back and we'll have a 5-minute break. And then we'll go back to Serge for some questions. And I was sort of wondering, Serge, you might like to give us a little bit of thought, seeing your guitar in the background, whether we might have a little song at some point. But just give that some thought. No pressure. Or even and the mouth organ is very good too. Serge does an extremely good imitation of Bob Dylan. If you haven't seen it on his Facebook page. Anyway, Andrew, put us into some groups, and we'll come back after the break, and we'll have some questions and more exercises with Serge. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Okay, everyone, I'm going to put everyone into breakout groups now. So you'll see a little window flash up on your screen. It's going to be about 4 or 5 people per group. So I'm creating those now. So all you need to do is accept the invitation to go into the group. And if you don't want to go in, just don't accept it.
Yeah, I'll be in a group.
There's a new window. You have to open up. You have to watch
What do I do?
So, Serge, we're back with you.
I'm just a tiny little picture. I can hardly see myself.
Ah, you're still on speaker view. You can go on, Andrew, you better.
Oh, right. Okay, wait. Okay. Oh, well, I mean, it's fine. I don't mind.
No, you should be able to see the person who is speaking.
Okay, great. Now I can see you now, okay.
Good. Excellent.
Okay, good.
So I will, let's just have a look at the, no, sorry, I need to look at participants to see. We have Joe Elliott from Edinburgh with his hand up. Joe, I think you also, you came for Serge's earlier talk at Mystics and Scientists. Nice to see you, Joe. What's your question or point you'd like to make?
David, thank you, and thank you, Serge. And this is question is not exactly original, but it was suggested in the chat room we had earlier. But you talk about the the gap that opens up in our lives because of the restrictions of the virus. And you raise the appealing prospect that that gap will let in good things, and we may be on the threshold of a revolution and force for good. But how can we be confident that good things will come into the gap rather than bad things? Because there's a lot of sin around in the world, and it could go either way.
Okay, great, great question. I think sort of two things I'll say: that energy follows thought, and I will put my energy onto positive things because it's more likely that they're going to happen. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that I'm writing actually for Paradigm Explorer an essay of what do I think is going to happen in the future. And I think that probably things may get a lot worse before they get better. But I think the challenge for me, I speak for myself personally, is to keep my heart open so that if difficult and painful things come in, that at least I'm able to take them into my heart and digest them. So I'm not on the side of sort of goody-goody and suppressing baddie-baddie, because there's some terrible things around. I mean, if one lived in America at this time with everything that's going on with Trump, I don't know. I've been talking to quite a few of my friends. It's very painful for them to let in exactly what's happening. So my sense is that we just need to stay positive, keep our hearts open, and if painful things sort of come in, we have to find out how to digest them.
Thank you, Serge. Can I just bring something in from your group, which was that Anna from North London was saying that when the lockdown started, her various neighbours came round to find out with little lists saying, what do you need? Do you need contact? Are you feeling a bit isolated? Do you need food? Do you need vegetables? And this is something that's never happened before. And so it's possible to do these sort of what you might call microcosmic actions in your immediate neighborhood. And she said that one day somebody left some food, surplus vegetables from their allotment at the back, and there was a little note saying, "Is this enough?" And I just found that so heartening. And so these maybe other people have got stories like that. They can also, you can put these into the chat box. So I think there's a lot that we can do in our own orbit, as you say. There's a lot of things that are equally totally out of our control because we're on a big ship, as it were, and the ship has its own momentum, and there are people steering or trying to steer it. So thank you very much for that, both Serge and Joe. And we're going to Bernard next, from London. Bernard.
Yes, thank you, Serge.
Hi, Bernard.
Hi. It's really a follow-up to Joe's question, really. I mean, you're saying how, as an individual, we can let in the good, and that's fine. But what worries me is when you look collectively at humanity, how do we know that humanity as a whole is going to let in the good? And you gave this, we had a nice discussion about Trump. You remember you made this remark about in 5 years' time, we'll all look back on Trump with great gratitude, which was an intriguing remark, which we talked about at great length. But we weren't completely convinced about this because I think Joe put it very nicely when he said, bad can generate good, but it can also generate bad. And there will be some people who will actually benefit. They will look back on Trump with great gratitude because they will have learned from him. But the fear is, though, that there will be more bad generated by something bad than good. So how do you make a distinction between the individual response, which may be positive, and the collective response, which may be worse?
Very, very great question and kind of difficult to answer. Ken Wilber is not very sort of positive about humanity. He thinks there's only a very small percentage of people who are really in the awakening phase. And so he's not very sort of positive. I think it's very difficult because as we see in war or in football matches, whole collectives get taken over by the shadow. And again, that happened in the Iraq War when the American soldiers behaved atrociously to the Iraqi people as bullies, and they were sort of taken over by that violence. I guess it's not quite answering your question, but I just kind of want to say that I think evil seems to need to exist in the world. And in Stan Groff's book on the cosmic game, he wrote about evil, and he said, if there were no such thing as evil, there'd be no place for the Mother Teresa's to bring Christ to the poorest. There'd be no place for the goodness to come in, because evil is the stuff that tests us. The difficulties are the ones that test us. So I guess I see this as a sort of testing ground, and everything is being so enormously amplified that there's a lot of confusion around. I know I haven't answered the question because I don't quite know the answer, but I've just sort of talked a little bit around it.
So no, that is helpful. I mean, I agree, evil certainly generates good, and it generates Mother Teresa, but the trouble is evil also generates evil, and
generates evil, and we don't know about the sort of karmic things that our planet has to go through. I've been reading Chris Bash's new book, LSD and the Mind of the Universe, and he talks about, you know, extraordinary powers of good, but that there is unbelievable suffering that humanity has inflicted on itself through the ages. And I don't know if, we don't know if we've got a lot more collective karma to go through. But that's why I feel that if we can build up the good, if we can build up the strength, our emotional and physical and spiritual and intellectual immune system, then we're better equipped, whatever gets thrown up for us.
Yes, Serge, I think one of the issues is the way we frame these things. And I remember talking about this in the International Futures Forum. And if you frame things as problems which have solutions, then that's a particular approach. And in the world situation we're looking at the moment, it's so multifaceted and complex that we can't define it in any meaningful way, and we certainly can't solve it in inverted commas. We can only use it to apply a constructive and creative approach, you know, with a compass direction in accordance with our values, and then act in the various ways that you set out, you know, with random acts of kindness. Now, these are the microcosmic things that we can do in our own immediate circle, which may not make much difference, but it reminds one of the story about the boy going along the seashore throwing starfish back into the sea, and there were tens of thousands of them. And somebody comes along and says, "Well, what difference do you think you're going to make?" No, there's tens of thousands more, and then most of them are going to dry out. And he said, and he picked the next one up and threw it into the sea, and he said, "Well, I made a difference to that one."
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So I think this is we have to be realistic about what we ourselves can do, both individually and in our neighborhoods and collectively, but then do that.
Yeah.
So that's our responsibility, is to do what we can in our circle of influence, and then it may represent at least one starfish going back into the sea.
David Spangler put it beautifully, sprout where you're planted.
Very nice, very
Yeah.
nice.
Great.
We have Lawrence who'd like to come in. Lawrence, what would you like to say?
Hi there. Yeah, I'd just like to
Hi,
share a
Lawrence.
story. Hi there. I'd just like to share a story on the kind of good versus evil. I accidentally set up a social enterprise 4 years ago as part of volunteering for another project because I hadn't planned to set it up as a business, which I'd never done before. I set up around these utopian values of a gift economy, so welcoming everyone, zero waste, yeah, it's a cycling social enterprise. The project I was volunteering for didn't make it, but this did. And I was asked to set it up. I applied for my first grant, won a grant. The container was taken away that I'd built. A container was gifted within a couple of weeks, and everything was just gifted. And this thing has ballooned because it runs on a gift economy. Everything we do is gifted. It's volunteer run, volunteer led, but the gifts that have come in to support the community have been amazing. And those are compounded, those gifts are compounded. And in the same way that evil can be compounded, good and love can be compounded as well.
Great. That's a lovely story. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really cool. Thank you.
Has anybody else got a similar sort of stories of initiatives that they think have made a difference, or in which you've been involved? Because we don't have any hands up at the moment.
Well, I'll tell you, I will.
Helen, we do.
Ah.
Helen.
Just to say that I've been involved in some mass meditations, and these are people, this connected all over the world, just basically all coming together at certain points to just raise consciousness, just join together to raise, unconditional love into the world. And I do believe they make a difference. I mean, I'm from a scientific background, but I really do believe we're very powerful creators, and our thoughts are incredibly powerful. What we think really does make a difference into into our way we act and our beliefs. And I think we need to be more empowered actually at this point, because I think if we can really look at our thoughts and really open our hearts, all those things that we were talking about tonight, I think it can make an absolutely massive difference.
Yeah, great, Helen. Fantastic. You're a great lady. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thank you. John, you'd like to come?
Yes, can I?
Go ahead, John.
Hi, John.
Very nice bright shirt you got on there, John.
Oh, it's muted again.
You're muted. We can't hear you.
Is that taking me?
Yeah, no, you're okay now. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, I think he muted himself again. Hang on.
Yeah, you muted.
Getting this technology.
No, don't click on anything else.
No, okay. Is it okay now?
Yep.
Have you got me?
Yeah.
Thank you, Serge. Basically, is my soul and yours and everybody's part of the anima mundi, the soul of the world? And do you think the mechanism, I'm very interested in mechanisms, the mechanism for the way the soul can speak to us is the mechanism that Irving Laszlo describes as the Akashic records, and Rupert Sheldrake describes as morphic
resonance. Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
I mean, yes to everything.
Thank you.
I feel that there is one soul and we're all connected, that the soul is the connective link, that sort of my soul is connected to your soul. And the more we get our souls out of hiding and they begin to grow and evolve, then the more conscious we are, and the more that our work can become ensouled, But yes, I absolutely agree with you. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Just to show you that this is a new book that arrived 2 days ago, and I'm about 2/3 of the way through it already. I was reading it in my hammock this morning. It's called An End to Upside Down Living by Mark Gober. And 2 years ago, he published An End to Upside Down Thinking, where he gives a critique of physicalism and scientific materialism that ignores a lot of the interesting material and evidence that we in the network are interested in. And here it's reorienting our consciousness to live better and save the human species. And what his fundamental point is the one that you've just made, Serge, which is the move from thinking of yourself as separate to realizing the oneness and interconnectedness of being. Yeah. And so there, and we'll get Mark on a webinar later in the year, although the planning is now so far ahead that I was speaking to Keith Ward today and booking him in for December. Are you about to sing a song?
Well, as I have no voice and cannot play an instrument, I spoof everything up. So here are a couple of verses of Coronavirus Blues with apologies to Eric Clapton, right? Okay.
We'll come back to Jack.
Okay, just 2 verses. Good morning, virus. Well, how do you do? Good morning, Corona. Well, how do you do? You stay away from me, and I'll sure stay away from you. I know that you're contagious and fatal to the touch. I know that you're contagious and fatal to the touch. But if you promise not to infect me, I won't bother you too much.
Great. Excellent. Well, it also reminds me that network aficionados like Peter and Bernard will know that since 1991, it was a tradition at the annual meeting of the network to sing the Corn Circle Blues. I can't do it, but we'll get Di Clift on at one point and she'll sing it for us. So we've got Janelle, you have your hand up. So you're the next question.
Hello. Hi, Serge.
Hi, Janelle. How are you, darling? Good to see you.
I'm very, very well, thank you. So my comment is just that I find all of the shutdowns so humbling. You know, we're all talking about what can we do. We're very clearly being told to simply listen. And I'm wondering how much of all of this is self-organizing of the greater intelligence, the planet.
Absolutely, I feel, and again, that this was the point made in Chris Bash's new book, LSD and the Mind of the Universe, how powerful the creative intelligence that organizes things, you know, and he described on his vast LSD doses what really all the great mystics have always said, i.e. that there's a great plan for humanity and that things are organized and that this plan, that we're challenged to attune to this plan. So yes, I do feel that there's a kind of extraordinary purpose, even in all the confusion and purposeless and chaos and despair, because there is despair at this moment. And it's not true to say that it's the same for all of us. it's much more difficult for, some of us. And there is despair in the world, but perhaps this despair has to be experienced, as all psychotherapists know, that despair is always sort of leads to a breakthrough. And I do see that a breakthrough is in the offing, sort of whether it comes sooner or later, or in a big quantum leap, or slowly, I don't know. And I think that we have to go with the I don't know, but be open to possibilities. That's my sense. With our hearts as open and as strongly as we can. I think it's a time to really be strong, keep fit, do our meditations, healing, be kind to our friends, sort of do the small things.
Thank you very much, Serge. I'm just pointing out, some of you will see in the chat, we have a comment from Ivona about those who embrace the dark side, usually the ones who need the most love from the rest of us. And I'm just going to read you a story which I just read today, which I think is astonishing and speaks exactly to this condition. And it's an episode from The Buddha at the Gas Pump, which is a podcast by Rick Archer that some of you may know. And here is Isira describing that she was being murdered by her vengeful boyfriend. And she says, he was literally trying to kill me and stating it. I wasn't going to get out there alive. My life was on such a thin edge that I knew if I did not harness every degree of my conscious presence, I would die. So I completely focused, absolute one-pointed awareness. And in that moment, I literally became everything. I became the room, I became him, I became the space, I was the body being murdered, I was everything. And in that, I was able to see that man's soul and consciousness. And the reason he was doing what he was doing was because he was so disconnected. He was broken and without love. And in that woundedness, he was so desperate for connection and so hurt from not having had it, that he went about it in a way of violation. That was his own violation that he was acting out. And in seeing that, I just felt the most incredible, immeasurable love for this soul. It was endless, this love, just a wish and a prayer that he could remember and know that he is love, that he is lovable, that he is loved. And literally in that moment, the entire room lit up. And it was literally like 1,000 angels were in the room. And that man, he looked up and he saw this light. And he dropped to his knees and said, "Oh my God, what have I done? I've killed an angel." He pleaded for my life to be saved. He literally had an awakening. So he picked up my body, called for emergency, and realized what I'd done. So on the one hand, he'd had an awakening. On the other hand, he realized what he'd done. So he ran away. And I ended up in a coma. What an incredibly powerful story. I've never read anything quite like that. And you could imagine it's in a section on forgiveness. But I think it speaks to that vulnerability, that lack of love, that disconnection, and the despair that can bring about these kind of violations.
Yeah, fantastic. If there's not another...
There is.
Yeah, I've got a little exercise to do, okay. A little process. Sort of, let's take a couple more questions and then we'll do the process, yeah?
Right, well, I think there's one more here from Sue, and then that's the end of the hands. And so let's go through the process. And just people are asking, I'll put the name of the book in the chat. And Serge, we want to see a copy of your book there before the end of the session. So I'm sure you've got...
Everyone who lives in America has been sent a copy of my book. I haven't yet seen it. I mean, you should be getting a copy, but I haven't yet seen it. Okay. It's coming out in a week.
Yeah. Right. Sue, then, your question.
My question.
Hi.
Well, hello, Serge.
Hi there.
I think
Hi.
we met at the Beyond the Brain. Do you remember? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
On love, I'm not sure that many people fully understand what it means. And in terms of parents and their children, right, a lot of people think they are giving love to their children, but it's not the right kind. It doesn't suit or whatever. And in fact, a book has come out, which I'm sure you've read, called Running on Empty. It's about, not responding to people's emotions and validating a person's feelings. So my question really was, how do we get rid of parents, or how do we test couples to see if they're good enough, to quote Winnicott, to have children? And following on from that, how many people who have actually, in the light of what you're talking about, and have so very articulately said, the remotest idea that they have problems, that they don't understand what love is, and they don't communicate, and furthermore, would do very well if they consulted a psychotherapist. Now, are you going to put psychotherapists in government?
Well, we're in danger of going down a big rabbit hole there, I think.
A rabbit hole? Why?
No, because
too many points, or
well, but no, but also we need to be very humble in terms of how we judge other people, and I think it's easy to say things. And other people are in a different situation. But I appreciate your point that we need more education, more emotional education, more parental education. We need more education about love.
Yes, I think what I'm just saying is...
I think I can just say one quick thing, is that love exists at many different levels.
Absolutely,
from the love of Jesus Christ at the highest level to the crimes of passion, where someone loves someone and they kill them because, and there's all the stages in the middle. Most of us, and I, certainly describe myself in that category, I'm sort of learning to love. I feel quite a beginner in this area, but I was reared to believe in conditional love, that I would only love someone if they were nice to me, and I'd only love a girl if she was pretty and liked me, and if she didn't, well, then she wouldn't get loved by me. And that was a very conditional type of love. And sort of maybe this crisis is helping awakening a higher love. I'd like to...
Well, yes, I very much hope so.
But sort of Winnicott's thing of sort of good enough parents. It's a big one, and we could talk about that. It's a seminar on itself, but I really appreciate your question, because it's a terribly important one of love.
Well, I think it does impact.
Thank you very much. We'll leave it at that.
Please, you're shutting me down again.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Time for Serge's exercise.
Right.
Serge.
Yes.
So we've got 10 minutes or so to go. So you had an exercise that you would like.
Yeah. I've got a little exercise that's a very simple exercise. It's a very simple guided meditation. And so if you could all get in a place where you're comfortable, and just close your eyes. And just be aware of your heart, your inner heart in the middle of your chest. Here, where my hands are. And just put a pair of lungs in your heart and breathe in and out of your heart. Our heart being where our soul so often talks to us through. Our heart being our best friend. Just go deeply into your heart. And have the sense of opening your heart. And open your heart right now in acceptance of you. I accept me. I honor me. I may have many faults. I may not achieve the things I always want to, but I honor me. I honor my humanity. I honor my belongingness on the planet. I open my heart to me. Let your heart expand. Breathing in and out of your heart. And as you do so, be aware that we live in a multidimensional universe. And there are these helping forces that I spoke of earlier. Be aware that there's a spiritual help available. You may see it in terms of a spirit guide, or an invisible presence, or the Buddha, or Jesus. It doesn't matter. However you want to see it, just be aware that there's a presence. And just allow this presence to come into your heart. There's a healing, helping presence. A presence that wants to help you in your evolution. That wants to guide and empower you. And just be aware of this presence. And it's making your heart expand a little bit more. Your heart is becoming bigger. And you realize there's something that you need. Let the helping forces tell you. They have a gift to give you. The gift may be very practical, like you need to do more exercise and be kinder to your next door neighbors, or it may take the form of a symbol. See, as you open your heart, see what the most important thing you need to do to speed up your personal evolution. Perhaps the guidance comes from right inside you, and these helping forces are inside you or outside you. It doesn't matter how you feel. Just have a sense one thing you need to do that will really help you. Move into your next step. Or perhaps it's a couple of things. You can write them down. Then you could imagine that tomorrow, next day, you are doing that thing that you realize is important for you for the next step. Okay. So if you've written something down, it may be a personal thing for you, or it may be, I need to help the next door neighbors. I need to mow the lawn of the old lady who lives next door to me. Whatever it is, just write it down. And then in the last 5 minutes, sort of let's just have someone share. Let's just have a couple of sharings in the last couple of minutes. What came up for you? Okay, David, could you tune if there's any hands up?
There's no hands up right now.
No hands up right now.
There's one. Oh, I think Lauren. A hand went up for a second from Lawrence. I don't know if that was a. There he is.
Yeah. Lawrence, just what did you like to share?
I've already spoken, so I'll keep it brief. Before I accidentally set up this cycling social enterprise, I was working for 5 years on a media company, which again was about gifting and challenging this notion of ownership and extraction. But I've got these 3 things now and I've been writing music since kind of lockdown. So that, the bike, and looking at this eco community. All of it is it's quite a lot of work. It's quite overwhelming. And in terms of the acceleration of evolution, it's knowing which one to focus on or whether to change strategy and focus on all 3. I'm realizing that I actually just need to take some time out and visualize first, which has been great. Switching off the head.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Thanks, Lawrence. That's fantastic.
I think the great thing, Serge, about having done this exercise with you, you quietened our minds down and put us into our hearts. And so I think I'm going to try and resist the temptation of going back into the head and just stay in the heart. While I thank you for this evening's session and the guidance that you've given us, wise guidance from your own work, from your life, from your reflections, and the long path that you've been on, for over 50 years involved in this kind of work.
And again, I'd just like to say, if anyone feels they'd like to just do a free session with me, I'm very happy and very open if there's any way I can support you and help you.
Yes, I've just I put your email into the chat so people can see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then and I also feel that you've empowered us this evening to think about what we can do personally and in our immediate environment, and rather than being overwhelmed by the collective situation. I think that's so important because we have to sprout where we're planted, as you very rightly said, and to be encouraged, which you've helped us with this evening, of course, has heart in the middle of it. the cœur, encouragement, is the cœur. And so to be encouraged is to be in your heart. Like you've just taken up your guitar again, so you've got
Amazing grace, well how sweet the sound in a believer's ear. Well, it soothes the sorrows, heals our heart, and drives away our fear. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Da, 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 da. Oh, it soothes our sorrows, heals our heart, and focus on the heart. May your hearts dance. May you be blessed. May the love of God dance with all of you. And thank you very much for the honor of letting me say a few words, my dearest friend David. And I just want to say, friendship is so important. I have a wonderful friendship with David, and friendship is terribly important.
We even actually did a session together on friendship. Yeah. But thank you. Before I blow the candle out and invite everybody to greet each other, I'd just like to say that we do have the events that are coming up after Serge's wonderful evening tonight. We have, as I said, an introduction to the network next Thursday. And then the following Wednesday, we got Rianne Eisler, which is a major thing. She's a world-famous author of The Chalice and the Blade and Sacred Pleasure and other best-selling books. And so we'll have her speaking from the US. And then the following week, we have Rob Verkerk talking about the health prospects and the prospects for vaccinations and what we need to look into. And I'm going to post a link tomorrow onto the page, the booking page, so you can see what he has to say about this very, very important, interesting and thoughtful information. And then the following week, we have Craig Weiler talking about psi wars and psi and skepticism. So a huge variety of topics. And then the last one in August is to Jonathan Porritt, talking about his new book, Hope in Hell. And so that's the 25th of August. So we've got some amazing events coming up, and the recordings of Serge will be available. We'll let you know that. And so we hope to see you again. And Serge, again, thank you so much for what you shared with us. And I'm going to blow out the candle, send you all light and love and blessings, and look forward to seeing you all again. And thank you, Andrew, for all the logistics and the crisis management of the last 24 months. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
You can unmute yourselves, everyone, and say goodbye. So feel free to unmute yourselves.
Great.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you so much, Serge. Bye.
Bye, darling.
Thank you.
Bye, Serge.
All my friends there.
Helen.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Serge.
Bye.
Bye.